Hey folks, it's Wednesday, September 30th, and I'm talking about October 2020 day by day. Each day I'm going to go over each day in November 2020. See, we have the chart here, and we see this is on the 30th. Let me go forward here. Okay, whoops. And this is tomorrow. We start with the moon in Pisces. So I'm going to go over all of this, and I'm going to go over each day, and so you can come back and refer to this again. 1 second. Sorry, I just played tennis and a little jumped in the shower real quick. A little hot, thirsty a little bit. So let's go. Now this so we have a interesting month, of course, coming up where Mars is going to go back into Pisces. I already did a full forecast on different shifts that we're going to see. We're going to see a Mercury retrograde cycle. We're going to see Mars go back into Pisces. Venus goes into debilitation and things like this. So I have a general October 2020 where you can watch that for, like general trends. This one is day by day. By the way, anyone remember that song, Day by Day? If anybody remembers that song, type in the box what musical it was from. Day by day, oh dear Lord, three things I pray. Remember that song? To see thee more clearly, follow thee more nearly. From my childhood, from my youth. Now kids grow up and the youth, they don't have these kind of songs. Well, I did. So it was a good song. So if you remember what musical it was from, surprise me, make me we have a winner so quick. Godspell. That's such a good song, wasn't it? To see thee more clearly, love thee more nearly, follow thee, love thee more dearly, follow thee more nearly, day by day. There's a great video on YouTube, you should look it up, it's from a movie, when they sang that in the movie, this blonde lady, I forgot her name, but it's such a beautiful video, just to see how she sings it, and that whole kind of the theatrics around it. It was a different time. That was the early 70s. It was just a gorgeous time, and that that era in music and in everything else was very different than what we have now. And I'm gonna just bring it up because I want people to see it. Day by day, here it is.
There is a huge fundraising deadline coming up.
Shut up. I'm gonna post it because I think that's it. And it's a great video. But anyway, for some reason it's not posting. All right, whatever. All right, so I think this is it. But anyway, day by day, we're going to go through and talk about the month ahead. So we start on this day on Thursday, October 1st, and we have a full moon. There's a full moon in Pisces. I just did a full moon in Pisces video, and the full moon in Pisces is a time to interact and to align and harmonize the energy of Virgo with the energy of Pisces. And what that means is that we don't really bring into completion the current cycle until we've integrated it with the opposite. And so right now we're in that Virgo cycle because the sun is in Virgo, And that sun in Virgo is trying to organize things in the best way, trying to, make things sensible and practical and, reasonable. And the full moon in Pisces is trying to say, well, but we can only organize life on Earth so well, and we have to just trust that it's all working out. We could see a lot of that now in the world these days, where we're all being really challenged to both be sensible and practical and trust that it's all working out somehow, that we're not just, a sort of chew toy in the mouth of the gods, like just getting, worked over. And so the month starts with this full moon energy in Pisces on October 1st and 2nd. And you can see the first day it's in Uttar Bhadrapada. That's the section of Pisces related to the deep, the serpent of the deep, going into those deeper cosmic waters in our mind and consciousness. And then on October 2nd, it's in Revati Nakshatra, which is the shepherd. That's the part of Pisces that's about surrender, letting go, and trusting those last steps of the journey, and trusting that we're being guided home properly. And so this is the nature of Pisces, has those qualities. And so we start the month off with that, with those qualities. And you can see here on the second and into the third, by the time we reach the third, the moon has actually passed Mars in the sky. So that full moon that we're going to see with that big bright moon the end of this week on October 1st and 2nd is, when we look up in the sky, we're going to see a big bright Mars next to a big bright moon. So notice that. It'll be quite beautiful up in the sky. And that big bright moon up in the sky next to the big red star, that's Mars. So we'll see that October 1st, 2nd, 3rd. When you look up in the sky, you'll see them. So on the 3rd and the 4th, and then into the 5th, 3rd, 4th, and into the 5th, we have the moon in Aries, 3rd, 4th, and into the 5th. Moon is in Aries, and as you can see, what happens is Mars goes back into Pisces on the 4th, and this is, this shows that return of Mars from the fiery sign of Aries into the more mystical, metaphysical sign of Pisces. And I did a full video on that as well that you want to watch. This, again, corresponds with the moon going through Aries. So for those first couple of days of Mars in Pisces, we're going to have the moon in Aries. So October 3rd, 4th, and 5th, we have that fiery moon where we're sort of fired up about our ideas and our beliefs and how we feel, ready to do battle over them. And we can also notice that in the sky, we have probably the most blatant and flagrant hemming that we could ever have here, especially on October the 5th, especially on October 4th and 5th. We have hemming. We have the moon hemmed between Mars and Rahu. Hemming is when you have benefics or malefics in adjacent signs. You see, this is on the 5th, this is on the 4th. The moon is hemmed between Mars and Rahu. But then if we go down here, the sun is hemmed between Venus and Mercury. Mercury is hemmed between Sun and Ketu. Ketu is hemmed between Mercury and Jupiter is hemmed between Saturn and Ketu. It's just crazy. We've never seen, it's not possible to really have any more hemming, I don't think, unless you move this over somehow. I think that's about as much as you could get. These are all just in alignment. Yeah, so if you move the moon here, that's the only way you could have more hemming, is if Saturn and Mars, but then it would still be the same. Yeah, I think that's would still be the same. So pretty crazy configuration to notice. One of my students, Casey Scott, pointed that out to me months ago, and here we are right now with it coming up. I'm glad I noticed it. So pretty awesome to see something like that. And so it you know, when planets are hemmed, when you get this much hemming, it just means that there's a you know, the planets that give power and strength, or that give the capacity for fighting and difficulty, are surrounded by ease and benefit, and the ones that give ease and benefit are surrounded by stress. So it's kind of like, and even after the moon moves, before that you still have all this hemming down here, but you have the moon Mars conjunction the day before, and then you have moon Rahu after, when moon moves into Taurus. So anyway, here on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, moon in Aries shows a lot of enthusiasm, passion, maybe arguing, fighting. So be careful of arguments and things like that on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th with the moon in Aries, especially with all this hemming going on. Things like, you know, Mercury and the communication is being hemmed between the sun and Ketu. And again, Mercury's opposite the moon. Jupiter, which is more cooperative, is hemmed between Saturn and Ketu. But then we also have Ketu, which is about exploring the depth of things, is being hemmed between Jupiter and Mercury. So you can go more into those things of depth with more intelligence and inspiration. So it's a whole other thing. I'll do a whole video on it here. But just notice this trend through October. This is one of the things that has a sort of potential intensity and explosiveness. All this hemming, especially. And with moon Mars and then moon Rahu here. On October 6th and 7th, we have the moon in Taurus, where it's in its exalted sign. So moon is exalted in Taurus on the 6th and 7th, and it's exalted there because it stabilizes the, you know, psyche, mind, and our heart, so that we're not so triggered emotionally. It also, you know, when it's in Taurus, it can also bring a certain amount of you know, like attachment to our worldly happiness, worldly life, worldly happiness, that we need to be, you know, that we need to be careful of. It's not so simple, but you know, but of course, this moon is also joined Rahu during that time. So moon Rahu conjunction shows where we are, you know, where our emotions can get a little out of hand, out of control, where we can be more triggered than usual and things like that. So we want to be careful of that as well. Moon Rahu in Taurus definitely shows a propensity for attachment as well, because Rahu brings that attachment in Taurus. But in general, this is good for, you know, all kinds of spiritual practices as well. With when the moon is in Taurus, it really calms down and settles down. And Rahu has a lot of potential to connect us to things that are metaphysical and that are not of this world. So those metaphysical things are also, you know, quite supported on the 5th and 6th, if we can manage our emotions. I'm sorry, on the 6th and 7th, excuse me. On the 7th, especially the moon is quite close to Rahu there. Let me move this forward a couple. Yeah. Okay. And then then we get into the 8th and 9th and halfway through the 10th. So the 8th and 9th and halfway through the 10th, the moon is in Gemini. It's also opposite Jupiter here, right? And it shows a, you know, the moon in Gemini is about communication, intelligence, discrimination, wanting to figure things out, understand things, adapt and adjust to new information that comes our way. So there'll be a lot of that on the 8th and the 9th and into the 10th. And again, it's really good for gathering information, figuring things out, not being so stuck in your ways. And as I say, Jupiter is opposite in Sagittarius here, and it's pointing to, finding teachers and gurus and higher wisdom, higher causes. So, one of the things that can happen when there's a lot of Gemini energy is we can kind of stop listening to teachers and just try to figure things out for ourselves. So again, everything is a harmonizing kind of energy. So when you get oppositions like this, when you get a planet opposite, Moon is in Gemini trying to figure things out for herself. Opposite that is Jupiter in Sagittarius going. But don't forget the bigger picture. Don't forget these great teachings. So on those days, on the 8th, 9th, and into the 10th, very good for things like studying and learning. Because again, you're going to be curious about how things work and wanting to figure things out. But you're going to also want to be keeping those things in line and in harmony with your higher teachings and higher wisdom. Because again, it's not just that Jupiter's aspecting, but Jupiter's in Sagittarius aspecting. So you have to understand, this is why I talked about so much that these planets are in such good dignity. This Jupiter in Sagittarius is going to be there for a couple months. I mentioned this, a few months ago. I mean, I've been talking about it all year. These aren't just temporary. Every influence of Jupiter right now, whether, like Jupiter's aspecting Venus, it's going to be a very positive, benefic Jupiter from Sagittarius. Saturn, every Saturn aspect, which it's going to do once the moon goes into Cancer, it's a very powerful Saturn. It's not Saturn all worried and triggered. It's Saturn in Capricorn, where it's very aligned with our values and our duties and our commitments. That's the way you want Saturn. You don't want Saturn all disjointed. You don't want Jupiter all disjointed in a sign. You want it powerful. So again, this is quite important. This moon through Gemini on the 8th, 9th, and into the 10th shows where we're interested in gathering new information and details, and it's aspected by a very powerful guru. So literally your gurus and your teachers and your teachings will be helping you to align your information gathering with something that's worthwhile, with higher teachings, not just with trying to figure things out and be right and argue and play the devil's advocate for the sake of it and all that negative Gemini stuff. Because that's the negative Gemini trait. Oh, look how clever I am. I can just keep, batting ideas back and forth and never learn anything myself or never really add to the conversation. I'm just playing with ideas. It can just go nowhere. So this can really take it somewhere rather than just thinking you're clever because you're playing devil's advocate. So again, on the 10th, 11th, and 12th, now the moon goes into Cancer, particularly on the 10th and 11th, when the moon is in a close aspect to Saturn. Again, it also brings a nice leveling stability, because the opposite of Cancer is Capricorn, where instead of just being overtaken by our emotions and emotional kind of fantasies, we're landed in something that's more grounded. So again, it's that harmonizing point where Cancer is very emotional, Capricorn is grounding. It's stabilizing, so the emotions aren't just always being triggered. And so again, that's on the 10th, 11th, and 12th. Moon in Cancer brings that psychic, intuitive, emotional, devotional state. Again, those are all the higher qualities of Cancer. And Saturn is aspecting, bringing that structure, that willingness to be alone, that realism, that practical sense. Because again, the problem with Cancer when it's not embodied very easily or very well is that we're too emotional about everything and we're not sensible. It's not grounded. So instead of it leading to a deeper state of devotion and true love and wisdom through the heart, it leads to a lot of desires and drama. It's kind of like, like the moon is that sign of the mother. That's one of the great symbols of the moon and the sign of Cancer. And what Saturn gives, you can imagine, is that what Saturn gives to the mother is all of that hard work and duty and responsibility. And until the mother gets all that hard work, duty, and responsibility, she doesn't know how powerful she is. She doesn't know how devoted she really is until she has something more important to be devoted to. This is the nature of Cancer, is to need something serious and hard to do, to sacrifice for. And all those virtues are Saturn virtues. So again, this transit of the moon through Cancer is going to be very powerful to bring the emotions into a deeper state of devotion on the 10th, 11th, and 12th, right? And Saturn there is just giving a lot of benevolence. And by the way, don't ever get into any of this polarized thinking that, oh, Saturn's one of the bad ones. Oh, that's going to feel bad. It's only bad if you're immature and you're not good at what Saturn is bringing. When someone has powerful Saturn, those things actually feel good. I mean, they don't feel good, but they bring out the person's greatness. Responsibility and duty and pressure and sacrifice, that brings out your greatness because it makes you focus and concentrate and commit to working through something. And that's what brings maturity and sensitivity, humility. So those are great virtues of Saturn. And we'll be feeling that quite a bit also as the moon goes through Cancer, and we can really connect to the heart, to that intuitive heart, but the intuition that leads to devotion, not just projection and childish emotionalism. So then on the 13th, 14th, mostly, so halfway through the 13th, halfway through the 12th, say halfway through the 12th, then 13th and 14th, the moon is in Leo and it's joined Venus. So again, the moon in Leo is in a place that's much more fiery, much more individualized, wanting to feel our own power and our own sense of purpose. And, the moon, again, is where we're trying to connect to the heart. And in Leo, it's quite fiery. So we'll feel that passion in our heart that really connects back to our sort of glorious individuality. That's how it's going to feel. But Venus is also there. So when you look up in the sky, and again, it'll be hard to see. It'll be before sunrise, if you're up in the middle of the night, or like before sunrise, if you see the moon, especially, like you could see it around here, like on the 12th, 13th, 14th, you might see Venus there as the moon is waning in the early hours of the morning. And, Venus close by gives this sort of romance, this kind of romantic charge and excitement. And again, when Venus has joined the moon, it can bring that kind of sort of individual passion and sort of, passionate individuality and things like that. Venus as a relationship planet that wants to accommodate and wants to harmonize our energy with another. In Leo, it's much more individualized. So it kind of interrupts that compromise that feels good to the Venus part of ourself. The Venus part of ourself is the part that feels good accommodating others and taking care of others and not feeling like we're getting the short end of the stick. When Venus is in Leo, it's often where that exchange is harder because we're more passionate about our own individuality and our own individual goals and whatnot. So we don't feel like compromising as much, or we also notice all the compromises that we've made before, and we might be a little frustrated about it because it's taken us away from our own goals and whatnot. So this is a sort of trend that we're feeling now as Venus is in Leo, and it's been in Leo for a while. So that's a kind of trend right now that we're feeling anyway. As far as even like starting new romances and stuff like that, it's a little hard right now because Venus is in Leo, and again, we're finding more of that joy and that bliss and that happiness in our own individuality right now. So not the greatest time to be starting like a new relationship or things like that. If you're already in one, it also can show where we're not as willing or accommodating right now, but it's fine. It means that the two people should be following their own, goals. And if the relationship has healthy boundaries in it, then it's fine. And then you can just come together and, Venus is quite passionate. And even that means like romantic, lovemaking, passion, sexuality. Venus in Leo does definitely have that kind of sexual, passionate thing too. So, best of both worlds. Go off and do your own thing and then come back together and work out some of that Leo, be like two howling lions in the woods, right? And that animal nature. So when the moon passes over that, it's going to hit that thing as well for those days. So again, one of the ways this could be really beneficial is for you to really track these things. Is for you to track these, transits, and these transits are, definitely noticeable. And for those who, those who study astrology, it's definitely a good thing to do to watch the transits every day, like I do. I have daily forecasts and whatnot. I also wanted to let people know, forgot to mention at the beginning, but I do have these courses, VedicAstrologyEssentials.com. You can go and get hours of free classes. Actually, I'm sorry, they're not free. For less than $10, you get like 10 hours of classes on Vedic astrology on all different subjects. I did want to just mention that. And, one of the great, ways to really learn astrology is to track it the way I'm doing now. So you can even write on your calendar or something, just make some notes about these things I'm saying right now, and then notice how they come out. Notice how they turn out once the month starts. Notice how these things I'm saying turns out, right? So 13, 14, 15, 13, 14, and into the 15th, the moon is in Leo. Then we have 15, 16, basically the moon is in Virgo, and we have a new moon there on the 16th. I'll do a full forecast on the 16th, but we see this, the moon goes from Leo, where we're all about our individual power. By the way, notice all this hemming is still there. That's set up there for quite a while. Again, Mercury turned retrograde by the time we're here, but all that hemming I talked about at the beginning is still here. It changes on the next day because then the sun goes into Libra and it breaks up this hemming. But here on the 15th and 16th, the moon is joined the sun in Virgo. So again, Virgo comes after Leo, and instead of it being that sort of power of the individual, that power of the king, that power to get out there and do things, Virgo is where we need to organize that power in the best way, structure, maintain, again, organize in a sensible way. And that sensible organizing is related to Virgo. We take all those details and manage them and organize them in Virgo. So for those couple of days, that'll be important. And we're going to start the month of Ashwini there on the 16th, and this will also be the beginning of the Navratri festival on the 16th in the U.S., the 17th in India, and so again, this is quite important. I think those are the dates. Look them up. It'll be sunrise. I think it would be, where are we at here? Yeah, it might be, it's probably here it's here on the 16th in the West and 17th in India, most likely. It'll be close to India. But anyway, so this new moon in Virgo shows a new cycle where these qualities of Virgo energy and organizing and managing those things become important. Remember, I said at the beginning of the last Virgo cycle that it's kind of outside of the Adhik Masa is kind of like an outside cycle where we're kind of pulled out of time for a while for that cycle. So I'll talk about that on the new moon in Virgo. But on those 2 days, 15 and 16, there'll be a big emphasis on organizing, structuring your life in the most intelligent way. And you see Mars is also opposite here, aspecting the moon. So there could be quite a bit of fiery, passionate individuality, of course, as well, because the moon has joined the sun. We have sun-moon joined here, very close, which makes for a lot of individuality. And then Mars aspecting the moon here as well. It's a lot of fire. Those two main fire planets are sort of torching, the moon, which is the mind, on those 2 days. So 15 and 16, be aware of getting, intense emotionally and fired up. Oh, there's Mateo. He says, Sam's course is best life-changing training I've ever had the courage to take. Awesome, Mateo. Love you. I reference the materials he eloquently shared on a weekly basis as I continue to learn from Sam's courses in so many ways. Thank you, Mateo. By the way, Mateo is facilitating a lot of the work with the Sedona Vedic Astrology Conference. You want to check that out as well. And there's still early bird registrations for that now. And he works with that conference, and he studied with me and has gone on to really do excellent work himself. So great to have your support there, Mateo. Thank you. And again, this month is a great time to be doing those things, like I was saying earlier, with this Jupiter here in Sagittarius. Again, Mars also in Pisces, Saturn in Capricorn. Again, even Mercury going retrograde. This means that it's a great time to introspect and reflect and slow down, because we're always externalized, especially with things like information and data. We're always externally gathering more. Give me more, give me more. Feeding the kind of hungry monster of data. Like, we feel like if I just get more data, then I'll finally get the answer one day. And it's not about that. We get so much data that we never learn about, that we never really digest properly. It's very Rahu-like. So one of the big themes of this month is really that kind of processing as well, especially with Mercury retrograde. I talked about that in my earlier October 2020 video. Go back and watch it, where I talk about the retrograde cycles. As you see here, by the 17th, both Mercury and Mars are retrograde. Mercury turned retrograde on, I think it was 14th. Yeah, 14th. So by the 17th and 18th here, Mercury is already retrograde. So we should be slowing down that Mercury nature, and rather than just talking and putting out information, we should be reflecting on and gathering information and data and processing it and becoming more expert with it. Especially those who study astrology, in particular, because astrology is so data-driven, and people have gathered much more data than they know how to use. And they need to gather less and digest more. Eat less and chew more, and take your time. So now is a great time to do that. So as we see in the 17th and 18th, the moon is in Libra, and it's joined this retrograde Mercury, right? And the cycle is starting over here. And so moon in Libra for these couple of days, it's good for relationships, for really connecting and reaching out to others, and looking at our patterns of relating, and how much we're all about ourselves, how much we're about compromising too much, and then trying to fight to get back our sense of respect, how much we blame other people for that. Realize your level of accommodation and your level of compromise is totally up to you. Your boundaries are totally up to you. No one can violate your boundaries unless you let them, short of obviously things like rape or those kinds of abuse. But I mean, in normal friendships or relationships or whatever, it's totally up to you to understand how to harmonize and balance your needs with another person's and all that. So this would be a good time to evaluate that with this retrograde Mercury in Libra. Join the sun on the 17th and 18th when the moon goes through Libra, right? And again, these are also really, crucial to try to, not just notice within yourself, but also reach out and communicate and listen to what others say. That's the real benefit of retrograde Mercury as well. It's not just to reflect on information you've gathered, but that includes things like listening to other people. Listen to what people say. Don't just talk. And that includes listen to what you've been told. Again, it's part of the same thing as reflecting on information. Instead of saying more and looking for more, reflect more, which includes listening more to people around you. And that includes listening more to the teachers that have taught you things that you think you already know. Go back and revisit them. Go back and revisit things you think you've already learned. And see if you hear it in a different way on those days, on the 17th and 18th. Then on the 19th and 20th, we have Moon in Scorpio, it's with Ketu. Now again, this is a very powerful Ketu here. And Scorpio, of course, it's a sign where the moon is debilitated, but it's also where we reflect on our sort of, potentially toxic emotions. It's where the emotions can get stuck, where we can get stuck in our emotions. One second. Where we can get stuck in our toxic emotions. And instead, we need to go deeper into that devotion. Again, the water signs are really about devotion. And with Scorpio, it can be very devotional. It can be the most devotional. And in fact, Scorpio is always devoted to something. And I say devoted because it's where the emotions get not necessarily stuck, but it's where they're sort of consistent and they don't change easily. So when Scorpio, again, their feelings and emotions don't change easily. So once they love you, it's for a long time, or hate you for a long time, or get an idea in their head that something happened. It's hard to get it out of the head. It can be stubborn and stuck and those kinds of things, like other fixed signs. But that's also a virtue in the sense that it's where emotions can be devotional and can go very deep. Because when something is stuck like that, if you can go deeply into it, and it's not just moving on to the next thing, this emotion, that emotion, like, the next one. Instead of that motion, it's deep, then it leads to devotion. But again, like I said, Scorpio is devoted to something. Sometimes it's a sign that's devoted to its own pain, devoted to the conspiracy story, devoted to what everybody did to me, devoted to, whatever it might be. So we need to be devoted to something that's pure. And again, with Ketu there now, Ketu is a very purifying influence on the Scorpio energy, because Ketu is literally that part of us that is without a head. It's without a head. The head's cut off. So in many ways, Ketu can be all heart. It can be very devotional, all devotional. But again, it's devoted to something, but what that is really depends on how much spiritual practice we bring, how devoted we are to pure teachings. So again, the moon can have problems here because the moon is a sattvic kind of pure energy, and and Scorpio has that potential toxic nature because it's tamasic and stuck and looking out for its own preservation. This is what the tamas is. So these couple days could be tricky on the 19th and 20th with the moon in Scorpio, but with Ketu there, it's really very possible to regenerate and kind of shed our skin, like a serpent shedding its skin. And instead of staying stuck in these toxic emotions, become much more devotional. That's very possible here, especially for spiritual seekers. If you're authentically spiritual, this transit on the 19th and 20th can be very liberating. Ketu is literally like the liberator, and it can be very liberating. So notice if you're really authentically spiritual, or just kind of using spirituality to try to feel good, like many of us do with a lot of things, right? Spirituality is a way to try to feel good, not to actually grow and not actually develop. So if it's really an authentic spiritual practice, then those days could be, truly liberating in that way, because Ketu is going to want to drill down deeper. And then on the 21st and 22nd, the moon is in Sagittarius, rather. and that shows where the where we're going to be dialed into a more a sense of purpose and hope, and like a more hopeful stance in life. Again, Scorpio is where we can get stuck in the difficult side of life with the tamasic nature. Well, this is why Sagittarius comes next. Sagittarius is like, well, but there's this sense of purpose and this sense of hope and this sense of these great teachings and gurus and wisdom that teach us about something beyond just our animal primal fears. So this is a good transit here, because not only is the moon in Sattvic Sagittarius, and it goes in and around the middle of the day on the 21st, but it's also joined Jupiter. So this moon Sagittarius joined Jupiter really shows a lot of hope and inspiration and purpose. When you look up in the sky, you'll also see a beautiful, bright Jupiter in the sky. So it's very nice to observe as well. In the sky, constellationally, you should see it rise around the middle of the night, and look quite beautiful up there in the sky. So again, these couple of days, moon in Sagittarius, like the on the night of the 21st and then the 22nd, a time to really reconnect with higher wisdom and purpose and teachings. And again, if you have devotional practices and you actually practice them, again, not just use spirituality again as a way to sort of feel good, but to practice. Again, spirituality it's not easy. It's not just believing in something. It's not worship. It's not just worship, I should say. It's not just believing in things. It's practicing. Belief is just religion, and we can believe anything. Beliefs are, everything is a belief. We believe something. But spirituality are practices that you do, not beliefs that you have. And again, what winds up happening is that if we're not willing to awaken and we're just, again, trying to feel good, it's certainly better to find a philosophy that's uplifting. It's going to help us feel better. But often when life gets difficult and crucial, we will wind up doubting those beliefs. We fall back on our triggers and our fears. So this is why when you do the practices transcend all of those beliefs. And then the beliefs support the consciousness that comes from doing the practices. So it really feeds on itself when you're doing authentic practice. So this is very powerful at this section of the month, because not only do we have Moon Jupiter in Sagittarius, which is not just connecting us to the hope that we get from teachings, but the benefit of the practices as well, from our guru's teachings and from doing them. But then we continue. Again, Jupiter and Saturn are very close in the sky, even though it looks like they're in different signs. They're very close to each other in the sky. There are no lines in the sky up there, right? But on the 23rd and the 24th as well, and into the 25th, we see that the moon then goes into Capricorn around the middle, well, actually early part of the 23rd, and then the 24th. So then it'll be joined Saturn, which again is more demanding. It's more serious. But this is where we put into practice the hopes and the teachings, the hopeful inspirations of Sagittarius becomes the work and the effort and the sadhana of Capricorn, or in Capricorn. So again, this is why this section of the sky right now, for those who are authentically spiritual, who actually follow great teachings, put them into practice, and really want to awaken, Jupiter in Sagittarius is giving us that hope and those great teachings, and Saturn in Capricorn is saying, so do them. and do them over and over again, and stop expecting that you're just going to be happy all the time and that it's always going to feel good, and that, oh, now that things are hard, you can't do the practice anymore. It's demanding that we do it. Whether we like it or not, we're learning it now. This is what the world is showing us. All the COVID stuff and all that we're so triggered by, all of it started as soon as Saturn went into Capricorn. I said it then, that we're in for this for several years. And it's basically saying, okay, you need to now wake up, grow up, and your spiritual teachings are going to have to be practiced now. No more bypassing. Even and Jupiter in Sagittarius wants to bypass. The only thing that doesn't really want to bypass is Saturn. Saturn says, no more bypassing. Do it. So again, these couple of days here, on the 23rd and 24th, is going to be really where the moon will be joined Saturn in Capricorn, and it's great for that sadhana, those spiritual practices of especially meditation and solitude and stillness, and facing our fears, facing our tangible fears. You know, Scorpio is like the irrational fears, and so is Virgo somewhat more. Virgo is more the worldly fears of the moment that we manage. Scorpio is more the imagined fears, paranoia kind of thing, in the negative, of course. And Capricorn is more the tangible fears of the world, like not enough money, my health, the structure of the world. So we have a lot of those fears now, of course, right? With all the political situations and stuff. So we have to manage all of that and eventually manage our fear and be able to let go of the negative triggering of having all those fears, right? So you should expect to feel that on those days, but that's what you're here to do. You're here to manage that on the 23rd and 24th. 25th and 26th and into the 27th, the moon goes into Aquarius. Again, it's also ruled by Saturn. And you see it's also getting this hemming from Saturn and Mars. And so this hemming, again, creates that environment of stress. And, you know, Aquarius is that part of Saturn, which is making a commitment and concentrating on things that are bigger than just ourselves and our own fears and our own salvation. And concentrating on things external, the world, culture, social, social structures, social duties, social commitments. So, so again, your duties and obligations to the world, including wanting to save the world, wanting to make the world a better place, wanting to be of service, will be big on the 25th, 26th, and 27th. And God knows we need those things now. We need to stop also just bypassing the world that we live in. There's big things that are happening and people just can't wait to fall asleep, and it's all just too yucky, and not be grown up and rational and sensible about these things. We're never as irrational and nonsensical as we are about politics, because we think it doesn't influence us. I say politics like the leaders and stuff, we want to just kind of tune it all out like it's not going to matter. We would never make the irrational judgments that we do of people that have that much power as we do with like political figures. If someone was going to do brain surgery on us, we would overcome our yuckiness about, I just can't have this person, I can't vote for this person, my conscience. I'll vote for the unqualified person who's never done anything because the other one is just so yucky, or whatever it might be. And it's the same kind of thing now. I don't like either one of them, so whatever. And we just won't even make any decision. If our life depended on it, which it might, we would grow up and it's why it's a grown-up decision. These kind of social decisions, I'm not just saying politics, but in general. This is what a grown-up decision is. Grown-up decisions aren't a choice between, rainbows, butterflies, and ice cream, or the gates of hell. That's not a grown-up decision. It's an easy decision. The thing I want, or I'm going to pout and cry. No, grown-up decisions are we have to weigh, the lesser of two evils is less evil. That's a grown-up decision. or some version of that. We do it all the time. We do it all the time. But yet when it comes to things, matters of consequence, especially in the world now, people just, it's like they can't do it anymore. Oh, forget it. I don't like either one of them, especially like in politics, especially. I'm saying US politics as well at this point. It's like, well, because I don't like either one. They're both bad. And we create false equivalents. We would never do this if our life depended on it, or our mother's life depended on it, or we're getting in an airplane with a pilot and, well, who knows? I don't like either one of them. I don't like their personality, so I'm not going to vote for competence. Or they might just wreck the plane because they think I don't like them and kill us all. I don't know. I can't decide which is worse. So again, this is what grown-up rational adults have to do. And now I'm talking about it because this is the virtues of Saturn, the virtues of growing up and being adult about decisions and taking care of the world that we have for the next generation. I can't decide which one is worth. One is a total climate denier, blah, blah, blah. The other one, oh, yucky. Oh, don't like him. He's also old and creepy, or whatever it might be. Like, okay, there's a point where the lesser of two evils is less evil, and that's important. So however those things kind of play out, and maybe they play out in another way for you, but these are a lot of the big decisions that are coming, and the things that Saturn makes us, the virtues of Saturn gives us this ability to understand that and to make a tough decision for the benefit of the greater good and for that sort of thing. So whatever that is for you during these times, these look at what's happening culturally on the 25th, 26th, 27th, and we'll be looking at those kinds of things and noticing it. 28th, 29th, we have Moon in Pisces join Mars. Again, now Mars has gone back into Pisces, and it's this spiritual warrior, hopefully, where we're disciplined toward our deeper mysticism and metaphysics and things that take us beyond this world. Because we're not just in the world, in the physical world, we're also a spiritual being. And Pisces is beyond the world. You know, Aquarius is where we're still, you know, we're a participant in the world, part of culture and society, where our individuality is less important. But in Pisces, we're beyond that. We're transcendent. That's the last step. And that transcendent last step connects us with that unity field, that unity consciousness beyond separateness. And so we look up in the sky, it's almost a full moon, and again, we'll see now this moon Mars in the sky up there in Pisces. Should be a beautiful show because Mars is going to be quite bright and the moon is almost full. So in those days on the 28th and 29th, again, a great day. These are great days to just feel yourself swimming in that cosmic ocean beyond all of the triggering of the world and the politics and the drama and the this and the that and the enemies and the friends and the wins and the losses. There's something that's beyond, that's untouched by all of it. And you better know it. You better know that part of yourself. If you don't know that part of yourself, then all of this is way too triggering for you. And it's triggering for all of us. None of us, we all want to see the world work out the way we want it to work out. But you also have to be acquainted with that which is beyond. If you're not, then this is really a nightmare. If you are, it's nightmarish, but it's also sort of funny. Sort of funny. So, and I would say particularly on the 29th, this moon, Mars in Revati Nakshatra, which is related to the shepherd, that shepherd god, is really that beautiful deity of surrender and peace, so that you can let go and trust that the guru is taking care of you, that guru's grace is taking care of you. And then on the 30th and 31st, and into the 1st, the moon is in Aries again to start or to end the month in Aries, where we're fired up for a new beginning and ready to riot after the election. That's a joke. Yes. So this is right before the upcoming U.S. election. So this moon in this moon in Aries, it's a good time to make sure you have enough ammo, right? Ammunition is Aries. Stock up. It's good for like making barricades, right? No. So again, the moon in Aries is very much about our individuality, individual strength, passion, and it's also great again for doing spiritual practices like yoga and things that make us strong and a strong individual. But again, it can also be quite contentious, for sure. And I'm sort of making a joke, but there could be tensions very high culturally because we know what's going to be happening around this time. This is on the Saturday and the Sunday before that election, which happens on Tuesday. You could see a lot of just heated, crazy stuff going on. And again, so what we're here to do, the fire signs in astrology, that includes Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, are very much part of what are called the Kshatriya caste or the warrior caste. And the warrior caste is also the caste of the kings, the politicians, now what would be the business people, the people in charge. Of course, that's also the military. And, the Bhagavad Gita takes place on a battlefield. And Arjuna was a warrior and Krishna was the charioteer. But in other stories, Krishna was a king. So was Rama. He was a king and he had a bow and arrow. They had weapons. That's just the nature of the world. The world is a battle. It's a battlefield. Even Pat Benatar said, love is a battlefield. But we'll leave that for another time. But life is being there's a war waged on the battlefield of life. And it's a battle between darkness and light. And the real, what's called Kurukshetra, which is the battlefield, is your own consciousness, your own mind and heart. And how much courage do you have for the real battle? And I don't mean the external battle. And yes, that's real too. That's the stage. That's the platform. That's the battle you're in. That's the battlefield you're on. But just like in the Bhagavad Gita, and if you've never read the Bhagavad Gita, you should, because it's a metaphor. Life is a metaphor. Or I'm sorry, the battle is a battle, the battlefield is a metaphor for the demons and the asuras in your own mind, right? And Lord Krishna was literally teaching Arjuna on an actual battlefield. You're not on a battlefield. There are people who are, but we're not literally on a battlefield with bullets flying over our head. So we actually have it pretty easy relative to how bad it could be. Most of our battle is our own mind and our own psychology and our own mental distortion field. Unless you're literally on a battlefield. So don't overlook the grace that you have to not be fighting for your life. Like right now, I'm not talking, and I could say things like that sometimes and people will be like, oh, but I am, but aren't we really kind of fighting for our life and when it comes to this and that, and if you're this, look, it's great to have the luxury to turn things into metaphors, but there are people who are literally fighting for their life and would die to have your life and the advantages you have. I'm speaking generally because I'm sure there are people who are having very, very difficult times, but I'm saying it's a great luxury to be able to have the time to actually do spiritual practices and meditation and take on this inner war in a way that where your life isn't being threatened. So don't waste that time. All great gurus say that we have a lot less time than we think we have. And that is really important. And so this transit of the moon through Aries at the end of the month, don't waste the time in useless battles. And like I say, we all have much less time than we think, including